So here's our sites. So, I mean, the obvious thing we need to do or want to do, if this is our telemetry data coming in, for instance, which is automatic maybe every hour from the NIWA network, we may want to look at our sites. So by clicking on one brings up everything we have associated with the site. And of course the obvious thing is look at our stage, and we're going to see the last 7 days as we have here. And we can also plot the flow. If we go to a lake level, there's a lake which only has stage, no flow, and you can see the stage record there. Here's a larger river, generation below a power station, stage and flow. So a good way of checking our sites easily. There's a normal river, flow at that river. So along with that, we can also use this option for graphing here called graph and zoom. So graph and zoom allows us to play around with our zooming in and out, time and stage axes wise. So if we just leave it at the defaults, it comes up with this option here where we got zoom in, zoom out. We can move left and right. So let's try zoom in for start off. By hitting zoom, we get to pick up our axes or our box, if you like. And so if we want to zoom in, say on this stage record here, we can pick up our sides of our boxes, narrow in on this section, right click back out, it'll automatically zoom up for us. We can put the points on if you want to see the actual recorded points. We can move left and right. So we can zoom in on any section we like. We can save that and exit out of there. So a good way to look around at our data. The other graphing options, of course, is a graph over time. And when we go and do anything like this, we obviously, first thing we want to do is select our data. So we can either do it via here, or we can go to Data, Select Data. And by then it's coming up with what site we want to choose. So there's a list of all our sites, so we'll stay at this site. There's the name of the site, what item do we want to show, maybe we just want to look at stage. We're going to pick our dates and times. So these are Tideda dates. So you can see it's 2015-07, July 09, the 9th of July through to the 16th of July. So we're going to use, there's a week's record there, or we can use the default, which is all the record on that file. So it goes back to 1986 through to the end of the record 2015. So you can pick up all the record. If I do that, it will automatically put all the dates in there, or we can use the all data button below. So if you want to change date format, if we go to preferences, here you'll see you've got Tideda format or calendar. So now if I go back to graph, and if we go date, it comes up in calendar format. So you've got the option there of either. You can double click and then type in the date you want. So I want to go 2015, maybe 0601. So it's just going to give us, what, 1.5 months. So we've told it what date range, what site, then we can go to graph. Let's ask it to use its auto for min, max, so we've got to set the scales. The height of the graph, we could make that. These are things that you'll learn over time by playing around with. Again, we can check our data here, which is what we set before. Okay, so there we've got about 6 weeks of data being plotted. In this case we can't zoom in, it's set. This is a good place to then, if you want to, go and print that. It'll print out on paper, so you can keep that on file. So again, that's one way of graphing if you know the date and time, or we use the graph and zoom option. I've done that same box there, and I can then zoom in, play around with that. So I just want that record. Zoom. Points on, points off, move left, move right, save it and exit. So there's another useful tool for looking at our data. Now if you want to look at rainfall, we have some rainfall stations here. Here's rain, for instance. If we click on the actual site, and then we'll get the rain. Now as you see, this looks different than a normal line graph we saw with stage, because this is a histogram. but the data is displayed, the kind of data here is incremental. So over whatever the period of the record, say it's a 15-minute or maybe 5-minute interval where the recorder is logging, it will increment any tips on the tipping bucket. So for instance, in this section here, you can see there's been, this is in, if we put this, so we can then, to make this easier to read, we can graph this in presentation units. So if we go back to our data at presentation units, it'll be in millimeters rather than micrometers. So if we replot that, we've got millimeters per hour now. So these are in hourly blocks. So we see we've got 15, 20 millimeters occurred in that hour block. There's about, 18 millimeters in this section here. So in that 1 hour period, which we can stipulate this interval, you could have 1 day, could be per week, per year. But generally 1 hour looks the best, I think, on a graph. So we can graph per hour how much rain's falling in this catchment or at this rain gauge site. So another useful tool for rain. We can also do air temperature. Here's temperature. Voltage. So another thing we can do when we've got a graph like this, you'll see the font's quite large here too. We can also play around with that. So if we go back into our graph over time, we have a graph options box, and you'll see, as well as options here for labeling the graph, which is pretty much leave as default. We've got our fonts here as well. So maybe we should make that 7. It's quite large. If we OK that, yeah, it's dropped down to a better size. That's better. So another thing you may want to do is do an overplot. So these buttons here show new plot, same plot, that's 2 plots on the same graph, or an overplot. These are also found under the graph options. Plot type, new, same, and overplot, which is the same as the button. So if we want to do an overplot, we can click overplot. And we're going to go graph over time again. This time we're going to go back and select different data to overplot. So let's pick, say, the nearby lake, same date and time. We may want to change the colour. So we can go look at our colour options here. At the moment we've got blue, maybe we go for red. Also the width, you can play around with these different options we have in here too. The graph positions. So we've chosen the date, time, data, red option, OK that, and we'll get an overplot of the other side. There.